Hello everybody and welcome back. This is another quick tutorial from theddybull.com, and here I would like to show the process how you optimize things when you get CAD data. So as we all know, as you see here, this is a so-called 6-inch Y strainer. So very important, in the center here is kind of like a filter, the strainer itself, so that it kind of like particles that are in the water or whatever are getting captured. And you can open this thing here on the bottom and clean it out, etc., yada yada yada, whatever. But in this specific tutorial, I want to show you something that everybody has to tackle, no matter if you're in the architecture industry, if you're in the automotive, if you're in the aviation, if you're in the industrial design, mechanical design, whatever industry you're in. It's all about CAD data, and most of the time everybody works with so-called NURBS. So NURBS modeling, it doesn't matter if it's Rhino, SolidWorks, etc., CATIA, whatever you are working in, but usually CAD data comes within NURBS. Now there is for the final render engines, and I would say for the game engines and for real-time ray tracing, specifically also then if you package it as a game, and also if you want to use it for, let's say, Babylon, online OpenGL platforms, and specifically also for VR, so for virtual reality, for instance, mobile devices, right? Then you need to hyper optimize. And of course, if you would just go straight with those high polygon counts, especially for instance, you probably know, if you have seen my latest development process, also working developing for the Oculus Quest, the VR, that has to be super optimized, then you will realize the draw calls are very expensive if you're using a lot of polygons. So in this quick, short, dirty tutorial, I show one thing. I'm super I have so much in development process right now, but I was asked to do this, so I apologize up front already that I was going literally from this CAD model I was downloading for free, but it's just because of time. I don't have so much time available right now, but I also wanted to keep everybody in the loop and up to date how you usually tackle that. So I was also asked from lots of other people before if I can basically remodel something from scratch, if I have a photo reference and if it's technical, and if you have blueprints. Yes, you can do that. I can do this, of course, but it's a matter of time and efficiency. I don't have all the time in the world, but I did something really quick and dirty to basically showcase how you can do this. So first of all, as you can see, this here is NURBS, right? NURBS modeling. And whenever you input something into Max, you can clearly see you have super nice lines, it's clean, etc. But it is not a final edit poly. And of course, if you see here in the stats, I can see that just this little 6-inch Y strainer has already almost 22,000 polygons. So this is quite a lot. And the task is then basically to start remodeling and creating something that is a way lower. So for example, I was remodeling this quick and dirty here. As you can see, it matches precisely the 6-inch. And I was able to bring it down to 1,361 polygons. I have to say, the mesh is at the end completely collapsed. That means I started modeling here, like creating splines, extruding, then making some cuts and edits, of course, in the geometry in the mesh, deleting vertices and faces that you don't need. Of course, when you look also at the CAD data, that's what I want to show. You see, you have chamfered edges. If you convert this to an edit poly, then even edit mesh, you have chamfered edges. That helps you, of course, if you want to do a high-res render, because you can capture those highlights on the chamfered edges when you have glossy reflections in your shader. If it's like super sharp and crisp, like you see here on the final edges, then you can't catch those highlights. And sometimes you'll see this, and you can definitely notice it, of course, when you trim things and you want to keep it more low poly, because then, for instance, as you see here, I basically decided, look, I don't chamfer those edges. I don't want to add more polygons on top of it. So I keep this quick, dirty, fast, simplified, but it absolutely is from the measurement correct, and it looks exactly the same. So I don't want to show too much about how I modeled it. I think modeling is anyways, there are many tutorials out there. For this particular case, also what's very important if you want to use it for game engines, and especially for VR or even OpenGL applications online through the web browser, Babylon or whatever, of course you need to unwrap it. Also you see here on top of it, if I just go in, what I did here, I use also my tools super fast and super quick. I used the UV editor, went into flatten mapping and just selected everything with the polygon angle threshold of 45%, boom, 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 yada, yada, yada. So here are all my UVs perfectly laid out. Then you can use, of course, maps like 2K, 4K, 8K. I go usually crazy with those maps and always export everything at the maximum. But yeah, what else? I set up here real quick a V-Ray setup, physical camera, PBR shader. But I also want to show you this here real quick. So if I click render here, basically with my AMD Threadripper and my RTX NVIDIA 2080 card, and you can see basically what's going on and what you can do. How does the shader look like? Very simplified shader. I basically use a V-Ray standard shader, load my diffuse maps, my color maps, whatever I have available into my slots and connect those shaders or the texture maps straight into my maps. Of course, for bump maps or whatever, as you can see, I use here a normal map, as you can see here as well. And how I created that, I show you as well. Of course, very fast and very quick. So as you can see, that shader, there's nothing really special on it. Like reflection highlights, etc. As you can see here, that it looks more like metallic. I didn't even here get into more details and was detaching like here the bolts, whatever. Of course, also what you can see, this is not a low polygon. And then on the low polygon, this is really like, I would say, depending on your application, how low poly do you want to go? I basically went here more low poly, but in a close-up shot, you would see it here. Of course, it doesn't look round anymore, and you have some edges. It depends on the task. It really depends also, I would say, what your client is requesting. If it should be super low poly, you can go even, crush it and crunch the numbers and go more low poly. If it should be a little bit higher, go higher. I think for this example, I just picked something in the middle. So, yeah, what else to show you? Of course, even height maps, normal maps, whatever you need, usually in order to create this standard, people always call it Übershader, but I'm using V-Ray now since like 12 years. I just say my V-Ray shader, right? And of course, you can see whatever I exported, even if it's Fresnel, glossy, reflection, I put it into my slots wherever it's needed. The height map, usually I have more control if I add my V-Ray displacement modifier on top of it, because if you do so, I can also play with my water level and the shift values so my mesh doesn't explode, and I can crank up those numbers. I'm using here a physical camera as well. That means I like to play with depth of field. I like to use my own exposure controls and set this up very quick and easy. And also what my focal point is and so on. So you can see this also here in my physical camera. So this is of course all offline rendering and ray tracing. And I also show you what I did like here super quick and dirty because like I just want to show you the possibility, what you can do and how I basically knocked this out and went through this whole thing here, okay? In terms of texturing, I also show you how I do this. But the fun part is this is the classic old offline ray tracing, so to speak, right? But I also show you then what I do continuing with this in real time, how fast you can knock out the exact same thing, and how I go from a pipeline using 3dsmax, using Datasmith as a container, into Unreal. So what else I want to show you? Once this model was done and relatively quick, just like, created, you take this model, you unwrapped it, and you export it as, of course, I would say at the beginning, as so-called FBX. So by the way, all the files, the test files, the project files, so you can see behind the curtain, it's all available online for free to download on my blog, fedibull.com, of course, and you will find then also the download link. So as you can see, FBX is exported, and then I jumped here, for instance, in Substance Painter, and I have something here already super quick and dirty done, but maybe also I want to show you here what I did. So first of all, I don't want to give you here like somehow like I don't want to do like a PhD work here for like Substance Painter. All I can show you, I want to show you, is relatively quick how you can do something and start from scratch. So I basically did this here before. I can start actually a new project and show you how I did something like this, relatively quick and dirty, so you can use this as well. So I click Save. Now I close this project, and I start with the complete new one. Say New, and I usually start with PBR Metallic Roughness. That gives you all the maps you can use literally for all the platforms you like to deploy your stuff. Of course, DirectX. I click Select, use and load my FBX in here. And 2K map for this is fine, also for the demonstration. And here we go. This is now exactly my mesh I modeled, the low poly one, as you clearly can see on the hard edges here. And this is how it comes naked into Substance Painter. Next, what I'm going to do is, works like Photoshop. If you're familiar with Photoshop, it's not really very, very different. I create a new layer, or like I said, you have also here on the lower left different materials. You could also assign that. If you assign a metallic material, you see it here, it's in the first layer. You can turn it on, you can turn it off. I take the next one, you see it metal, of course, like it already created something, and you can also delete those again, the layers, and you start from a, so to speak, like fresh layer. So what I usually do is very simplified. You go in, you find probably here already something that is called steel. Steel rough. I assign it. Now I have already some dirt maps on it and like cool stuff that looks kind of metallic, right? And if I want to pimp this a little bit, and let's say I want to add something here really super quick on the bottom of my mesh, on my bolts or whatever, I can click into alphas. I create a new layer. When I'm in my new layers, I turn off basically roughness, metal, or whatever. I just want to have height information. I change here the intensity. And what do we pick? We pick here like this, crossfade. Just drag and drop it into an alpha. Select your brush and select the size of your brush. And this is what I really like about Substance, because it also goes so quick, super fast. And I mean, I just show you this. It shouldn't be here a PhD work, but as you can see, boom, boom, I have instantly my first two things. I'm so sorry that I don't pay here like crazy attention and to all the details, but I think you really get the point here. I can also go to this one on the top and click on that one and click on that one and click on the next one and on here. So here we go. Then this will work nicely for our normal map. What else we could do? You can of course go crazy. You can create another layer, and then you can pick any, I don't know, brush, spoon, something like this. Change this. Change of course the height, intensity, and you can start, adding some stuff on top of it. Whatever you like, whatever you feel you would like to achieve, how strong you want to have it, etc. The cool stuff is, look, no matter what you do here, right? You can always turn this layer on and off. You can undo it. I just go crazy and delete it. If I want to add, for example, my own little logo, then I have it now in the other project. I don't have it here, but doesn't matter. Let's say you have your own logo, or you have like, this is from the strainer on the bottom, something where you say like exit or open or clear or close or unlock, whatever you would like to do. You can also take this, those alpha maps basically into the brush, and then change the size, and also of course then the intensity you can change here, and the height, and you can see like, do you want to do it more subtle, do you want to add it on top of it, and you can see that's the exit, etc. Of course you can paint on top of it, you can create other layers, and then you just go to your brush. You also remove again your alpha, and then you can just, instead of height map, you can just click, for instance, here color. Of course you can change the base color, and as you can see, you can go in and you can brush this, make this red, make it blue, make it yellow, pimp it as you wish. So this is how it works. Okay, so as you can see, of course you can create crazy combinations in the layers. This is wonderful. It's like almost, it's similar to Photoshop, and then you get all your texture maps. You have also on the left side procedural maps, scrunch maps, lots of alphas. You can create stencils similar like in ZBrush, and if you're familiar with this, you have different skins, hard surface brush. So I don't go into this so crazy. There are also so-called smart materials, which is pretty good. If you assign them, then you get already on the edges this worn out edges, similar like to 3D code. Anyways, so as you can see, if I go back and open my discard here and open my previous project, then you can also see what I want to show you, that I added some bump maps in different layers. I added here my stencil, or like my alpha from my Fedible homepage. And what I do next is I just export the texture. And as you can see, you have here already presets. And yeah, it's kind of cool. You can basically choose and select, if you're using Arnold, you use specific presets that creates your texture maps for an Arnold shader, Corona, for the CryEngine, Keyshot, Land Studio. Of course, you have the basics for PBR, export, physical based rendering that works Redshift, and so on. You see also Unity packages you can choose, of course, if you want to use Unity 5 for metallic or specular. The same is similar if you're using the Unreal Engine, like I do, of course. Absolutely prefer the Unreal Engine, and show you also what I do really quick with the Unreal Engine, and why I'm not even spending so much time in Substance Painter, because I show you then even more when I use Substance Source as a direct source within the real-time ray tracing, the real-time engine, how you can do this quickly. And of course you have also V-Ray, whatever you pick. Then you choose your folder. You have here your maps, and you could say here in your maps, create a new folder and say like, hey, this is my V-Ray folder. You click in it, say select folder. I just go here straight with JPEGs, 8-bit. I don't even bother like with 32-bit or 16-bit images. Just click export. Boom, you can open the folder, and then you can really see what's going on here. And as you can see, this is your normal map. Wonderful. It has all the height information, what you need then for in the PBR. As you can see, this is all based, there's my Fedible, on the UVs that have been, unwrapped. And that's about it. So this is pretty fast, pretty straightforward. You can also see that I added a few color layers here. So on the bottom, I painted over super quick. Okay, like as you can see, like you see strokes here everywhere. But it's just because I'm really in a hurry. I have so many things to do, but I also wanted to share this, of course, relatively quickly, how fast you can create something like this, right? So, and I'm even documenting this. So, yada, yada, yada. So what's happening? Once those maps have been exported, then you can use those maps in your shader. That's what I did right here, okay? So you have the full freedom. You can work relatively quick and relatively fast. Whatever you would like to achieve, of course, you can change the environment, the HDRI, and so on. But this is also offline ray tracing. I think what is super cool, what I want to show you next, if I go back here, so that I have actually not an added poly on top of it, and this was my initial like export model, is now if you export this into Unreal, and I want to really show you the power of the real-time ray tracing, how quick and fast that goes, and even if you make changes here inside of 3dsmax, how fantastic the pipeline works using Datasmith, because if you have if you get changes, right? Let's say you work on a client project, and this is usually the case, like clients tend to create or to have lots of edits and changes. So then this is wonderful because the Datasmith bridge was exactly built for this. So I basically click on export, okay, and then I go to Unreal Datasmith export, and here's my Y strainer, and I exported this. And then boom, I open, so to speak, my Unreal engine. And as you can see in Unreal, I have here my models already imported. So what you can see here is basically a copy. So basically, this is the low poly, and this is basically the high res. So it's exactly what you see here. And let me kick out here basically my physical camera, and let's go into perspective mode. So this is the low poly, okay, and this is the high poly, as you can see. And I basically imported both. This is the original low poly that came just in, like imported, like with the shaders from V-Ray. And this is the high poly, and I'll show you how I was shading this and how you can make those quick, super fast shader changes. It really doesn't matter. And this was just a copy. So what I do is I select this and then create another copy, or create another copy and create another copy if I want to. It really doesn't matter. And the reason why I did that was just to show you that I was creating really quick another material here in Unreal as well, and added that, okay? So, but as you can see, this is what you get in. You can then, of course, play with, you know, different shader settings. You know, whatever you like, you can change the displacement or the normal map in this case. You can change the bump map. You can change the metalness, the glossiness, the specular, and so on. So, yada. So what I showed you is basically nothing else than creating here from the Datasmith, like taking those materials and just assign it. So I can create a new one, which I did here, or this is just a white one. This is more like glossy I created, and this is the original one. When you look at the Datasmith shaders that are coming in, at the beginning for rookies that might look always a little bit crazy because they use a lot of multiplier and power nodes for the fall-offs and you know, whatever you need for each specific slot. But every shader is built kind of like the same. You have base color, metallic, spec, roughness, normal map. There is some other specifics, of course, like ambient occlusion and so on. But usually the PBR shaders and the texture maps you create, the most important is, of course, like reflection, roughness, which is the glossiness in the offline, and you can switch this. I'll show you also how. And of course, metallic value, which is also controlled by the IOR, and so on. And the base color is the base color. So, for example, I show you here how you can create a material which is absolute similar, is like a PBR based shader from scratch. So basically here I create a new material, and then as you can see, I just type in constant 3 vector, so I just get a color, and I don't know, let's do this like kind of pink here, so it really pops. And then as you can see, you can create values, and if I start here with the roughness, then you can see roughness is the exact opposite from the glossiness, but it's the same stuff. So if I change this to 1, then you can see it's very matte. If I change it to 0, then it becomes a sharp reflection. Okay, so it's the exact opposite actually if you work in the offline shader with PBR shaders as well. Here in V-Ray I show you can switch between, if you have here a shader going on, between glossiness or roughness. And when you look at this, the old classic offline V-Ray shader, of course, always was dealing with glossiness. Okay, so if it's sharp or if it's blur in the reflection. And when you work in the game engines and with real-time ray tracing, etc., PBR shaders, it's called basically roughness. Okay, but absolutely V-Ray took care for this. And if you use the microfacet GTR GGX in the BRDF options instead of Fong, Blin, or Ward, then you're set up for success already, because this is supporting and you can switch very easy. So that being said, and again, I'm sorry that I'm flying through this here today. I'm pretty sure that you will have a lot of questions. It's just like this. I have a crazy list what I need to work on right now, and I'm super stoked about showing you this as well. So please, I'm sorry, I apologize. I hope still it's valuable for you, even if I'm super fast in this. But you have a video, you can pause, you can slow it down a little bit and jump to the points, whatever is important for you. So roughness, I showed you that. Of course, specular, similar. Here you have then different values, very important. I want to have full specularity, as you can see. If I have my roughness also fully sharp in the reflection, as you can see, this would be a super high plastic shader, so to speak, right? So if you save this, then you created just a plastic shader, and now I can go goofy. And as you can see, I have now a wonderful crazy pink kind of like Y strainer. So anyways, this is how you can do it, super quick and super simple. But of course, you can use the texture maps you created before on top of it, plug it in without this color information, of course, and then you would have literally the same effect. If I just turn off here that and go into texture maps, and I can drag and drop this in here, then you will also see if I assign this and kick that out, then boom. Now this is the shader, and it's also very, very glossy, so to speak. So, but here comes even something I want to show you why I don't even bother so much about this, because what I usually do is I use substance source. And people always ask me and say, Bernhard, I created already before a tutorial, or let's say a review about substance source, and that was pretty hard with my fellas over here who are responsible for substance source, but I think they're doing a great job, even if you will always find something to improve, of course. But what I want to show you is, so this is substance source, and substance source is pretty cool because you can for sure just use a full library. It's all PBR based, and you can just download any shader you would like to use, and you can use it, of course, with the substance packages. You can also use the substance player. So basically, meaning if you download one of those shaders, right, it really doesn't matter what you want, what you create. There is a terrace or whatever, as you can see here. Then you can just download those, and you can also go and export basically the texture maps you have been creating here. You have all the possibilities. You can change the scale, you can change the patterns, and so on. But it's always based on that you can export diffuse, base, normal maps, specs, glossiness, roughness, metal, height maps, and so on. And I don't want to go into specifics about shader creation, because the physics behind shader creation, no matter what ray tracer you are using, it doesn't matter if it's RenderMan, if it's V-Ray, if it's Redshift, if it's Arnold, if it's whatever, of course in Unreal, in all the game engines, it's all based on the similar basics, on a foundation. And I will create a video tutorial later just about understanding what actually this all means, right? It's very, very important that you understand the basics. If you understand that, then you can create shaders like I do from scratch, like within minutes, because I understand the values. So I can create a metal shader, a plastic shader, a wood shader, concrete, or whatever I want relatively quickly, right? But if you're a rookie and you don't know anything about shaders and you don't even want to deal with it, then watch this. You can go into this library and then basically say, you know what, if I find, for instance, here this bronze hexagon, here we go. It's showtime, and then what's happening? Whatever. So refresh and download the next one. I want to show you, for instance, this one, right? The other one just didn't work, or I was had to refresh my page. Or like you see this one here, and you see whatever I like. You see I just download it, and then you can download those files and shaders. And I also try this one here right now. Yes, so here we go. And then those files, the so-called SBSAR files, you can always open with your Substance tools, right? For instance, I love the Substance player because once downloaded, you just load it in your player. You can change something relatively quick, and then export the maps again. And once you have those maps, and if you have been unwrapping this from the beginning, as you should have been doing, right, then you can use this. You can use all those maps. Doesn't matter. You can create your own custom paintings, like I showed you here, of course, but you can also use this library. It's super awesome. And why I love Unreal also so much is watch this, because how do you get that shader now to your geometry? It's super simple. So I created here, for instance, then my Substance materials, and I show you live also how I do this. So once downloaded, doesn't matter if it's the painted, you drag and drop it, and you click import. And I go to my next one, I drag and drop it, and I click to import. And so I want to have the other shader, click and drag and drop it, and import. So I did just now 3. So I filtered through my materials, I saved, because everything will be saved within your game container. And now let's get started. Boom. And now I add this material. This is, holy cow, this is the pimped one. That Y strainer costs now $20,000 because we have a pimped version. So this is so expensive because it will never corrode, right? But whatever, let's do this one. We had this before. Let's add this one. Look at this, how quick and fast and easy you can assign shaders, right? Look at that one. But it's really up to you. It's really like what you prefer to use and how you set up everything and how detailed you would like to have it. But I just wanted to show you how much fun that is. And of course you can go in. What did I download here? This is just super high polished. It's almost like Chrome. Let's do this one. This has those like greenish rainbow colors on top of it and so on. What is this one? This is perforated and so on. I mean, like the options are like really crazy. You can have brushed ones, metal ones, flaky ones, crunchy ones, whatever you would like to use. So now you probably understand why I'm not even so crazy about like painting everything by hand, because I can also go in here in Unreal and create super quick changes. Last but not least, of course, also I wanted to show you, this runs all in real time. It's all retraced. I pumped up my retracing values here, of course, already. I also wanted to show you this in the post-process volume. As you can see, I'm using 16 pixels already. And I also show you then this, when you go down with the samples per pixel, I get even 80 frames per second. It's all in real time and it goes super, super quick and super, super fast. And I really, really like that. And it's all fully retraced. I have Final Gather here. I can change it, of course, to brute force. And as you can see, there is no more render time. Also, I wanted to let you know that you could still use V-Ray. So I have also V-Ray For example, you can use, I'm a big fan of V-Ray here in Unreal, but I mainly use it then also for baking, especially VR. I think that's very, very good, very beneficial and very helpful sometimes. But when it comes, for instance, to cinematics and sequences, or if you would like to render out short animations, then of course what's really powerful, in my opinion, is using, of course, the full power of Unreal. And as you can see here, this is a camera, a real-time animation I just set up. A camera, you have bokeh effects, you have depth of field. I mean, look at this. I can basically go in and change my camera settings live. I have here my depth of field. I can turn this on, right? I can play with the settings. So I have my keys set on and I can render. Look at the nice bokeh effects, right? In the glossy highlights. And I can literally render out an animation within a couple seconds, right? Even if I create new materials, or if I change this, I just render out this version, or I render out that one, or whatever I really like. So even so, if I have here texture coordinates for this one, I think it looked really good on this one. I liked it. And of course, when you go in, you can also change your camera settings, my exposure settings, my values, and so on, and can render this out in like nothing, no time. And I show you. So if I have here I saved everything, and if I have here my camera setup, then I basically say render me now in real time. Let's create here folder number 02. I select this one, render me the short animation, 500 frames, capture. Of course, stop. I have to, sorry about that, specify my camera here, of course, and have to say like I need my camera, 500 frames. Now I got it covered. File save all, boof, and render my animation. So as you can see, this is happening in real time. I think what's also crazy about it, while I'm even talking, recording, and documenting all this kind of stuff, it's rendering in real time. You don't need any render farm. I think it's amazing because if you would like to show something to your client, if you want to create short teasers or trailers, it doesn't matter, for social media, for something to showcase maybe how this works, right? How the pipeline works, how the Y strainer works, how whatever you would like to visualize, then you can do this instantly. And when you go in here, yada yada yada, where did I save it? I saved it here in render output. Then you can see this is what we just rendered. And if you bring this into a player, then you can go in here and just watch the full HD animation that was just rendered, put it into a RAM player like the DJV viewer. I really like this thing. You know, of course, usually I use the V-Ray PD player, but I like this thing as well. It's super cool. It goes super quick, goes all into your RAM, and as you can see, here's a boom, here's your animation. Anyways, of course, you can pimp the lighting, the shading, the rendering. You can say, I want to have the, how to say, like the high resolution polygons in it. I want to have the low resolution. You know, it's really all up to you and how you want to, for what you want to use it. Last but not least, also, this is a game. So that means watch this. This is now in real time. So that means even if I'm fully retracing this thing, right? This is real time. So that means whatever you see here, right? I'm flying around like crazy in full HD. So that means this is an application I can package, and I will package right now. You can also download to your PC, and you can experience this as well. It uses the usual game settings, right? So that means if you're a gamer, you know what it means. WASD, and like you go crazy in a shooter game or whatever. But if you're not a gamer, then you will get very, very quickly familiar with it, and you will love it because like it's just amazing. But when you look at this, it's like crazy because, you know, this is fully retraced. I'm using HDRI, three rectangular lights here in the background, so I just get a few highlights. I just want to showcase this. But also how quick the packaging goes, let me show you that. So you package the game, click for what platform you want to deploy it, whatever you want to deploy it. It doesn't matter if it's for Android mobile devices, for the HoloLens, for Apple products, and I'm usually on Windows. Then you basically go into the packaged folder. I select it, and the game or the full thing, what you see here, is packaged. And what does it mean? I get this question all the time, Bernhard. What does it mean when you package something? Why do you package it? You package it for clients, literally, so to speak. It's so good. What it does is the following: your client doesn't need any software at all. What I'm using here. So basically, what Unreal does, it collects everything and packages like a video game. You can then run on your PC, and whatever is needed, Visual Studio, all the files are packed into this playable game. So, and as you can see, how does it look like? I also want to show this at the very end. I had to turn off my antivirus, and now if I run it, as you can see, then the application launches. I also hope that you can see it. This is like full screen, like full HD, also with ray tracing on. But as you can see, this is then the application, and that means that if you have clients, you want to show him something, and the client just wants to see this on his computer for product verification or modifications or changes and edits you did, or like for material studies, and he would say, I like the golden one. Sold. We're gonna sell 10 million more pieces. Then what else you want? I mean, like, this is jackpot, right? So, but I also wanted to show you this, that basically this is how the application looks like for the client. And of course, you can pimp this. So please keep in mind, this is like super quick, dirty, and fast done. But it shows you really the workflow going from 3dsmax, creating something from a CAD file, dealing with it, how to manage the data, how if you want to reduce the file size from 22,000 polygons down to, in this particular case, it's 1,300 polys. How do you do that? How do you handle it? How do you manage it? I also like a clean, usually like a layer management here, so you can see that you create something when you have a nice overview. You create then standard shaders, standard lighting environment. I mean, even this one here was done can be done so quick and fast. I showed you also to recap how to bring it into Substance Painter, how you use this with the layers, how you can also use, of course, smart materials or like basic standard materials, just drag and drop it on top of it and mix it with other layers as you wish, as you want. And then also, I think the most powerful thing and super cool and important is if you have changes within your max scene file, right? Or you get client changes, then you can actually do it here and then export the Datasmith container, right? So you export basically the Unreal Datasmith container, and whatever you update, whatever updates you have, it will update here automatically. So maybe I also should show you live. So that means, for example, let's say you create one copy here, you say yes, and I create one copy on top here, right? And then you say like the client or whatever you're working says like, hey, we have an update, we made changes, yada yada yada. You click on save yes, click OK. So now this whole thing, you see it live, is exported like super quick and fast. All good. Now all you have to do is you go into Unreal, and this is what I really love. You go into a Datasmith container, uncheck your filter, of course. It's in the Y strainer, and then you say like in here, re-import. And whatever changes you made, it will basically come in, and it should now update with additional geometry because that's what we did. You click on import. and everything is here. There's always like an exposure node that comes also automatically in it. But as you can see now, this on top of it is here, that is here, and that is here, and that is here. And that's the cool stuff, because like whatever you create here within the container, you don't need to worry. You don't, like, instead of importing, exporting FBX and like double checking, triple checking, was this the real model? Did we export it? Was it confirmed or not confirmed? Confirmed. You know, this is the container, that's the bridge. That's why I love it so much, and that's why I feel also that Unreal, Datasmith, using using Max, and of course like all the other software platforms to bring stuff into Max, convert it and clean it in Max, and having here your master scene file, and then even using V-Ray shaders, PBR shaders, and exporting them directly into Unreal, and it's there. I think this is just fantastic. So last but not least, what I wanted to say, of course, as well, all that kind of stuff, all that can be, of course, also deployed to other platforms. That means if it's super optimized, you can also upload it to Sketchfab. Also keep here in mind, I think that Substance has even also, if you want to export the texture maps, here a preset for Sketchfab. Yes, here we go. So you see, even that, it's called albedo or albedo map, which is also diffuse color, etc. But it's all based on the same principles: roughness, metallic, normal maps, etc. So, and then you can do this, so you can use it also for, like I said before, Babylon, for online browsers, and create your own thing, which is also free to use. So that's it. Feel free to download all the project files, the scene files, whatever you need. I will provide everything, and you find it, of course, in my description, right? And you can download it there. That being said, I'm so sorry for this rush. I'm really sorry that I'm really rushing through this, but I wanted to give you a super brutal quick overview that you can see what's actually doable, what's the pipeline, how you can handle this stuff. And also, if an architect, if you work with SketchUp, usually also Revit, right? Revit and SketchUp for architecture is a lot. It's literally the same. What's cool about Revit is, of course, that you also have already Datasmith as a bridge. But like I said, if you want to visualize and keep a master scene file in 3dsmax, I still prefer Revit. Then, of course, going to 3dsmax, from 3dsmax through Datasmith into Unreal, and you have a wonderful pipeline. So that being said, I wish you all the best. I hope that this clarified a lot and showed also that my pipeline, or what I like to do and how I do things. I also wanted to say I'm jumping back then, of course, also into my VR development, specifically for Oculus Quest. That has to be super optimized. Shader Model 5 cannot be used, so guys, stay with me. I will release something new soon, so it's all deployed for the Android system. And of course, shaders have to be compiled to ES 3.1. And yeah, I'll keep you posted because I'm super stoked about that. That being said, I wish you all the best. Like always, thank you so much. And at the very end, of course, don't forget to subscribe. That whenever something new comes out, you will be notified. Click also the bell on YouTube, of course, that you don't miss anything. So far so good. I wish you all the best. Happy pixeling. Have fun with offline or real-time ray tracing, and talk to you later. Take care. Bye bye.